afternoon. I'm Sean Yao and this is One News Now. The Tourism Department has intensified travel measures as Metro Manila reverts to stricter quarantine status. Point-to-point flights for leisure have been suspended immediately, but returning flights are allowed for tourists residing in the NCR+. For land travel, only authorized persons out of residence or APORs will be allowed to pass through the borders of the capital. Meanwhile, hotels outside the bubble can no longer entertain guests for leisure from the NCR+, except those who have already checked in yesterday. Metro Manila has been put under GCQ with heightened and additional restrictions and is set to revert to ECQ from August 6 to 20. The IATF will implement strict border control across the NCR+ bubble once Metro Manila reverts to ECQ status starting August 6. In an interview with One News Now, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said border controls will also be in effect in Cavite, Bulacan, Rizal to avoid congestion.
So we will continue to guard yung borders ng NCR+ areas, and the reason for that is ayaw natin na magkaroon ng undue traffic congestion between NCR and its neighboring provinces. Kasi marami naman po tayong mga kababayan who live in the neighboring provinces.
As for the ECQ Ayuda, Nograles said that government has yet to determine where to source out the funds. Nograles noted that recipients of cash aid from the previous social amelioration programs will still benefit this time around.
The DSWD has the records of those who have received, and that's already been vetted, basically, because vetted by DSWD, vetted already by our local government units, especially in NCR, as they were the ones who implemented the social amelioration program. So we very much already have basically a listing of those who received the SAP in the previous Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2.
The Health Department is looking into the supposed mixing of vaccine brands in Mandaluyong City and Davao City. In a briefing, Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres said they've already discussed the matter with the agency's regional offices. For now, though, Vergeres explained that the National Office of the DOH has not received any complete reports on the incidents. The health official also reiterated that only one type of vaccine should be rolled out at each vaccination site per day to avoid such errors.
That's one thing that should serve as a lesson for everybody. Let's follow the guidelines. Let's just retain na isang type of bakuna sa isang vaccination site so that we can prevent further errors.
We'll have more stories after this short break. Keep it here. On One News Now, I'm Sean Yao. Supermarket owners are asking the public not to panic buy ahead of the ECQ on August 6, as this could further inflate the prices of some goods. Shaila Francisco with the story.
From 500 pesos, Noel Castro has allotted 1,500 pesos for groceries this time around after the IATF announced that Metro Manila will revert to ECQ from August 6 to 20. He hopes that the stockpile will last them for 15 days.
Nadala na kami noong nakaraan. Ang hirap. Lalo dumadami tao. Tsaka kinakailangan para safe din tayo. Lalo na kaming mga may edad na.
Sari-sari store owners have also started to restock goods as they expect more customers once the lockdown takes effect. Shelves of noodles, alcoholic beverages, and chips in the supermarket in Mandaluyong City were almost emptied before lunch. Supermarket owners are expecting more consumers to swarm this weekend, but they are asking people to stock up only for 15 days to avoid artificial shortage that could push prices up.
Magkakaroon pa rin ng konting shortage in certain outlets or supermarkets. Kasi, 1 week is not enough to fill up the inventory of all supermarkets, number one. Kasi hindi rin handa ang manufacturers. Hindi naman sila nag-overproduce, di ba? Or nag-produce more than what is needed given the situation, di ba? Number two, kahit na mayroong stock, I'm sure their delivery vehicles and people will not be, hindi naman kaya in 1 week.
The Trade Department agrees, saying that it may take a while to deliver goods because of logistics problems. The agency notes that supply won't be an issue as manufacturers will still be producing during lockdown.
Manufacturers natin, ang kanilang days cover, minimum of 15 days. They can some would even have until 30, 45 days supply. Tapos pwede naman yan, any tracker, kaya nilang mag-produce naman din daily.
Meanwhile, the DTI has clarified that they haven't approved the price hike for some basic commodities as they are still in talks with manufacturers who requested an increase of more than 2 pesos. The agency, though, noted that they will approve requests with an increase of less than a peso. For its part, the Agriculture Department has instructed other regions to supply NCR with vegetables. Prices have doubled due to the impact of Habagat, which has brought close to 616 million pesos in damage to the agriculture sector. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Let's move on now to other stories we're keeping our eyes on. Malacanang says that the COVID-19 vaccination across Metro Manila will proceed during the 2-week ECQ starting this Friday. Palace spokesperson Harry Roque said that the government's vaccination committee will issue further guidelines on the matter. President Duterte has recalled the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement, or VFA, with the United States. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said the president made this decision after meeting with U.S. Defense Chief Lloyd Austin. And Japan will extend its virus state of emergency in Tokyo and impose the measure in 4 other regions as cases continue to surge a week into the Olympics. Tokyo has reported a record number of new infections as Japan's daily case rate hit 10,000 for the first time. Tokyo Olympics organizers said that 27 new cases were logged related to the event, the highest daily number as yet. A sports psychologist says that today's generation of athletes are more anxious than ever because of varying reasons, from social media to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's listen in on this Bloomberg Quick Take.
The pandemic has been the single biggest factor in mental health, and for 2 reasons. One, we're all struggling, and number 2, the stigma's fallen. Everyone knows that we're all struggling, so no longer do we have to pretend like we're fine and we're just able to suck it up. It's more about transparency and honesty and realism, and people saying, you know what, it's okay not to be okay. And the pandemic's impact has really changed mental health.
So you've been in this field a long time working with athletes, including myself and our cheerleading team in college. You were also a college football player yourself. Do you feel there's more pressure on athletes today than when you first started with sports psychology?
Absolutely. In fact, if anybody wants to challenge me on that, just come with me this weekend to any Little League game out there and watch the parents in the stands and the coaches on the sidelines. Not to say that all of them are this way, but too often the intensity of emotions coming from the parents and the coaches on the sideline is just too much today. What we've seen is an entire generation of young athletes raised up with more anxiety than ever. That's not just because of the parents and the coaches. Social media, for example, has been another major factor in the rise of anxiety, and sleep deprivation a major cause of it as well. The anxiety and mental health concerns that we're seeing for athletes today is unlike anything we've ever seen before.
I saw table tennis gold medalist Jun Mizutani, who's a Japanese guy, posting about how he's getting death threats on Twitter via DMs, direct messages, and he said he's been able to shake it off. But in your experience, has cyberbullying been a topic of concern for athletes that you work with?
At the top level, yes. Sadly, it's very passive aggressive. It's very quiet in terms of the public, what they might know. But for the athlete themselves, it's very common to get some hate mail or even some death threats.
What would you say to those who think that they should be able to deal with all of this? Because they are these superstars, high-profile athletes who are high-achieving, high-performing.
No matter who we are, we all have a breaking point. And even for these athletes, don't judge a book by the cover. Just because they look like they're physical specimens out there doing amazing athletic feats doesn't mean that the 6 inches between their ears is as equally well developed. And the reality is, it may not be enough given the context that they find themselves in.
In your view, are the organizers of this huge event doing enough for the athletes? The IOC told me they have resources, including psychologists and a hotline in 70 different languages. What do you think?
Well, it's not enough, and we've long known that we're not doing enough for mental health. I would challenge every person right now to think about their home, their community, their sports team, their high school. What we've got to do is put the funding behind some of these organizations to say, yes, there's enough people here right now. If you need the help, we can help you. Sadly, in many situations, many places, maybe even our own communities, that might not be the case right now.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Masks on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.